we're doing this one outside today because I said so. Nice weather outside. You might hear a lot of background noises. There's a shit ton of birds here because we got a bird feeder, but it's really cool. She's so fluffy and cute. I don't know, and all the other outside noises associated with it. I thought I was gonna do this in like segments of, I don't know, like I'd read a book and then talk about it or something. And that would keep me sort of stuck to my reading goal. But at the rate at which I read, which is very slow actually, I think the next video, sorry, I'm just putting on my little post-it. I think my next video would have been like 7 months later, so let's not do that. Plus I wanted to talk about things as they come to my mind. And I got to talk about a book today with a friend, and it sort of brought back a lot of the thoughts I was having about it like a year ago when I read it. So today we're talking about Persuasion by Jane Austen. It's one of my favorite paperbacks. Beautiful. Got this at a secondhand book sale, but it was in mint condition. Lucky. I read this book over the course of like a week, sometime last summer. Wasn't really talking to anybody about it, didn't really get to talk to anybody about it until today when a friend brought it up, and it sort of brought back a lot of the thoughts I was having about the book when I read it. Granted, I did not do a great job at articulating myself then. I don't think I'm going to do a better job now, but just so I know that I have these, I'm capable of slightly complex thought about the books I read. That's the purpose of this video. Persuasion is Jane Austen's final finished novel, and if you had to ask me what's like one word I would use to describe this book, I would use the word mature. Characters in this book are mature. The romance that takes place in this book is mature, and Jane Austen herself as a writer has matured, I would say, over the course of her career, and it sort of culminates in this beautiful style of writing that is so distinct to her in Persuasion. The context in which I've been thinking about Persuasion is by comparing it to Pride and Prejudice. It is still one of my favorite books. I am a bit of a, I wouldn't say an Austen nerd, but I've read enough Austen. Sense and Sensibility, that one's up there. Emma was not my favorite, but that's a little controversial. Pride and Prejudice is up there, but Persuasion is my favorite Austen book. So I've been comparing it to Pride and Prejudice to sort of put things into perspective more. I think if I just start talking about Anne Elliot and Captain Wentworth willy-nilly, it's a little harder to follow for myself as well, because, again, it's been a while since I've read this book. But Pride and Prejudice is always fresh in your head, You watch the clips of the 2004 movie, Matthew Macfadyen looking beautiful in that field with his blouse open. He's so fucking autistic in that movie, just like me for real. But whenever I say I read Jane Austen, a lot of times Jane Austen is sort of lumped into, oh, she's a romance writer. She's a girly writer who writes about romances. That's not true. She's a very highly skilled satirical commentator who satirizes classism in society. That's the biggest reason why I was drawn to Jane Austen when I started reading her work when I was like 14 I think, is because of how well she points out classism. And I think it's most apparent in Pride and Prejudice, which by far is her most witty and fun and fast-paced, not fast-paced, but it's a very interesting pacing, I think, and it's very evident there. The whole "what excellent boiled potatoes" line it's part of it too. But when I read Pride and Prejudice, the classism was a little harder for me to see. Like, I knew that the Bennets weren't like poor, but like they had like 5 daughters, and that gave them a sort of, they were in one layer of society. And then Mr. Bingley was obviously richer than them, and then Mr. Darcy is even richer than them. And then later you meet like Lady Catherine, who's like on this other freaking level completely. So understanding the sort of strata, a pretentious word, of society, I suppose, was a little difficult for me. But classism in Persuasion is much more prevalent. I grew up in a very classist society. I've reaped benefits of classism, okay? I acknowledge that. I am sorry. I am sorry. And there are prejudiced opinions I still hold. And I have prejudices of my own, for sure I do. But I've found that when you let go of prejudice, it opens up the world to you in a more fulfilling way. Maybe is the word fulfilling. The world seems more full because there are all these possibilities, all these interactions, all these perspectives that you didn't see before. I think prejudice is an obstacle. It's a hurdle in getting to know the complexities of life and the people in this world. I found that. I still have to work through a lot of my other prejudice. But that's what happens in Persuasion. Anne Elliot isn't some like hi-fi upper class person. Like, yeah, they're in a respectable layer of society, but they're not like Lady Catherine levels, so that's not that crazy. And Captain Wentworth was just a guy. Like, he was literally just a guy. And that's why when they first met, when they were much younger, and Captain Wentworth proposed to Anne, she was persuaded, name of the book, persuaded by her family and her well-wishers, really, to turn his proposal down and sort of perpetuate that classism in society. We come back to this 8 years later when Anne Elliot is still unmarried. She is an older spinster now, and Captain Wentworth is a captain now. He's he rose up through the ranks in Navy, I believe. He's a sailor, if I'm not wrong. Embarrassing. Shoot me in the town square for not knowing about the book that I'm talking about. There is pride in this book too, not just prejudice. By the way, Pride and Prejudice was supposed to be named First Impressions. Fun fact. Whatever. Maturity. I think the classist tale and how everybody in society acts in the face of that classism is told in a very mature and satirical and yet very fun way. Is this as witty as Pride and Prejudice? I don't think so. Pride and Prejudice is sort of a page turner. Persuasion, like so many times I've had to just like close the book and just go in the corner and just be like, fuck, and then come back to reading it again. I think there's something to be said when somebody knows you before you are anything and knows you after you are something and still sees who you are fundamentally as a person. Maybe it's not the same person. I hope it's not. People go through changes. People are meant to change. People's feelings are meant to change. People's opinions are also dynamic. I think that's quite beautiful in this, and it's done very well. This is a book about second chances. This is a book about giving others and yourself and life a chance. And I don't know, I think there's something to be said there. I don't know how vulnerable I want this to get by, like, we're at 9 minutes, so I'm going to start talking about the romance section now. The romance is also beautifully done. It's not this burst of passion and this, like, love at first sight or, this whole thing where the entire, everybody sort of hell-bent on getting these two people together. It's the complete opposite. This is calm and quiet, and nobody wants these guys to be together. And fuck, they hardly speak to one another throughout the novel. But it shows that care and intention and friendship is very important in fostering that sort of lasting, mature love. The most romantic scene in the, well, okay, Captain Wentworth writes a letter. That letter is like urine maxing. I've written uriny letters and like I cannot even come close. But probably the most romantic scene from this book that I remember is there's a scene where Anne Elliot's taking care of her oldest nephew who's sick, and her younger nephew sort of like, you know, fishing for attention. Kids, fishing for attention, kind of bothering her. All Captain Wentworth does is he looks at that scene, sees what's going on, picks up the younger kid, and just leaves the room. So Anne can focus on what she's doing. And care like that, and recognition like that, I think is very... It's important to tell a beautiful story of mature love. There's also a lot of regret in this book. I think about regret a lot. I don't regret a lot, but I do regret some things in my life. But the regret is done also in such a mature way that Anne says, Anne says, God, they're all the same names. Anne, Emma, Elizabeth, the girl, Anne. She regrets being persuaded by her family members to reject Captain Wentworth's proposal back in the day. But she never blames them. She never blames them because she knows that they were wishing well for her, and she knows that they had her best intentions at heart, and she blames only herself for being persuaded and actually acting upon what others were saying. I think that shows a maturity of character in Anne, and oftentimes I found Anne to be a much more relatable protagonist than Elizabeth or, let's say, Emma. They are these headstrong, opinionated, witty, and fun, and everybody loves these characters as soon as they walk into a room. I could never relate to that, but I do relate with somebody who's quieter and sort of keeps to themselves and, you know, thinks about their feelings and is sort of disregarded by a lot of other people. Not to say I am disregarded. I am not quiet and I'm very talkative, as you can tell, but it's much more relatable, reasonable protagonist. I think the romance in Persuasion is passion and care and growth, character growth for both parties involved, tempered with reason and intention, I think. You get to know people over the seasons of their life, even despite a massive gap when they were separated. Despite their estrangement, they still choose to be civil and be friends and get to know one another and to shut up and take their time to intentionally get to know these characters. And I think there's something to be said about that. Time is the one thing we're sort of guaranteed. Time and death, I suppose. Time will always pass. And with time, a lot of things do pass. A lot of things change. Seasons of life. And bird just flew in somewhere. Okay. And you can love people across different seasons of their life as you see them grow into a person that they want to be and be in a place where they want to be in their life. And you can still... I don't know where that thought was going. It's beautiful to see that. When you love somebody for who they are fundamentally as a person, it's beautiful to see them change and grow and become a version of themselves that they want to be, and you love every version of them because you just do, you know, you just do. This video is getting a little too long, so I'm gonna, if I have to read out one quote from this book, this is the one I picked about how I think it really, it sort of aligns with the thing I was talking about. Mature love being cultivated over time and taken care of rather than a flame that just burns. It's a fire that is stroked isn't the word. Stoking a flame like in a fireplace to keep it alive. I think maybe that's sort of what it is. Then again, it's all metaphors, so if I had to read something out loud, this is pre them getting back together, but this is them sort of becoming, this is after they've become friends after their long estrangement and getting to know each other once again with intent and purpose and just respect, just mutual respect of who the other person has become over their separation. So Austen says, there they exchanged again those feelings and those promises which had once before seemed to secure everything, but which had been followed by so many years of division and estrangement. There they returned again into the past, more exquisitely happy perhaps in their reunion than when it had been first projected, more tender, more tried, more fixed in a knowledge of each other's character, truth, and attachment, more equal to act, more justified in acting. And I don't know. I'll probably reread that at some point after I'm done my current to-be-read pile. It's a good book. Highly recommend. Y'all don't need a plot summary for this guy. This is a good one. This video is long. Who gives a shit? This is literally just for me. But I sent a link to my previous video to like 4 friends, so I'm not really sure where the other views are coming from. So if you're just like a regular guy, thanks for watching. You are my friend now. Welcome to my mind and my heart and my soul. I don't know. Drop a like in the comments, tell me what your favorite flavor of ice cream is, so I know you guys are real people. Yeah, that's the end of the video. I love you. I hope you had a good day. You deserve having a good day. Yeah, doodles.